Hi everybody, welcome to today's Q&A session with Jan Badenhorst, the CEO of Matric College and experts in all things education and Matric student related. We will be running through some of the top questions that came up after the results were released for 2020. Jan is just going to run through a short intro of himself and then we'll get into the questions.
Thanks, Brittany. My name is Jan Badenhorst. I'm the CEO of Matric College. I spent nearly the last 30 years in distance learning, and a lot of it around the topic of Matric, involved, with people who don't have Matric, what can they study? If you do have Matric, what can you study? If you get Matric and you're not happy with it, what are your options? It's kind of the thing I've been busy with for the most of my life, I guess.
Thank you for that. Firstly, students that failed are asking, what now?
There's about 4 steps, and I tend to think it's useful to understand them and maybe to follow all 4 steps. The very, very first question, so maybe step 0, is, do you think that there's some mistake somewhere? Do you think you actually did better than the numbers are showing? If you think, no, I certainly wrote well, I expected to pass and I didn't, then you consider having your marks checked. So the first thing you do is you can ask for a check. A check means somebody checks that every question you answered was marked on your paper, and that the marks that you achieved were added up properly. So it's really a check to see if there's any error. So the first thing you can do is you can ask for a check. The second thing you can do is you can ask for a remark. So a remark will cost you a few £100. But a remark means that a new person marks that thing from scratch. Of course, that might mean that your marks get worse. Can mean that your marks gets better. A remark is not somebody trying to give you a better mark. It's somebody remarking from scratch and seeing if they get a totally different result than from what you got the first time. So for me, it's first there's the check. Secondly, there's the remark. Thirdly, you're allowed to upgrade up to 2 of your subjects in the May-June exams. For that, you need to keep an eye on the exam registration deadline, which is the end of March. And I wouldn't say to myself that's far into the future. If I wanted to upgrade 1 or 2 of my subjects, if I wanted to rewrite those exams in May and June, I would register as quickly as possible, because there's the whole issue of you've got to find a seat in an exam center, and you might find that you get registered for the exam, but the only seat available in an exam center might be very far away from you. So if you want to go to upgrade 1 or 2 of your subjects, you need to register for those exams very, very quickly. You can do it at your regional Department of Education offices. You can do it on the Department of Education website. There's an online process where you can also register for those exams.
Many students are not really sure if studying is for them. What are the other options?
I think often you get to the end of 10, 11, 12 years of schooling and you just don't feel like studying anymore. I think you need to allow yourself some time off. You need to allow yourself some time to think about it. Many people take a gap year, try to find a job, get some real work experience, and use the year to figure out if studies is the right thing for you. Also, you can do, some short courses. You can do distance learning short courses from home, and have a part-time job for this year, and just actually allow yourself the time to figure out what study direction, or even whether studies is the right thing for you. It's going to feel like a huge waste if you rush into something, you get accepted, you go to university or you go to college, and 3 months from now you give up and you realize it wasn't right for you. So I do think you need to allow yourself, and parents need to allow kids to just think about it and not rush into it for the sake of saying that you're busy studying. It's quite common in South Africa that people take a gap year, that they do some short courses, that they try to get some work experience, do job shadowing, really start getting into that mode of what career, what work do you want to be busy with for the next 30 or 40 years. It's okay to take some time to figure that out.
Where can students find out which course or degree or field is best for them to go into?
Man, there's all kinds of help online. I know a site, whatcanistudy.co.za. I know there's a number of websites where you can kind of type in, career test. How do I find a career? You do tests to figure out what is your real interest, and then you need to combine your interest with how well you are as a student to decide, okay, does that lead to further studies, or must I take the interest that I have and try to turn it into a job? But there's a lot of help online, and I really think it's worth pausing and thinking and doing research and asking people to try to figure out what is the kind of job you would love to do. Unfortunately, so many kids start out thinking, what I want is to make lots of money. And then somebody tells you, well, accountants make lots of money, and then you go and study accounting. If you're not interested in accounting, you're setting yourself up for 30 or 40 years of a job you hate. You're much better off finding and thinking about what kind of job you would love. And even if your first job isn't exactly 100% what you would love, but you already know where you are trying to get to, then you angle your career towards that interest. The more you're interested in the job you do, the less it is work, the more it is a thing that you actually enjoy. You're going to be doing your career, you're going to be doing your work for a very long time. It is worth thinking carefully about what really interests you. Secondly, saying you're going to be doing it for 30 or 40 years, we certainly live in a time of multiple careers. It's quite common these days that you start off after school, you study something, you find a job, you have a whole career for 5 or 10 or 15 years, and actually then pick something completely different and have a second and a third career. So you're not locked in forever, For me, the process of growing up is the process of figuring out what do you want to do with your life? How do you live a meaningful life? And your job is an integral part of that. Your career is a key part of feeling that you're living a meaningful life.
Many students are expressing their anxiety towards seeing past pupils of university or college who can't find jobs with their degrees or diplomas or short courses that they have completed. Could you say that a certificate, degree or diploma can guarantee you a job afterwards?
Bethany, we've got one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. I saw the unemployment numbers just came out again. We are at the highest rate of employment we've ever been as South Africans, and in the world we have one of the highest unemployment rates. So nothing guarantees you a job. Certainly studying, thinking that at the end of your studies you're going to get a job is unfortunately just not how it works. You're not going to sit in that class, whether you're studying a diploma or a certificate or a degree. There isn't somebody coming around when you're getting your final qualification and going, hi, I see you've got a qualification, I have a job ready for you. Not at all. We see lots of people with degrees who are unemployed, we see people with diplomas who are unemployed. So I think it's an important point to make. Don't think what you study will guarantee you a job. You've got to think about getting a job. You've got to get into job shadowing. You've got to get into holiday jobs and start working towards a job separately just from your education. I guess that kind of answers it on the whole issue of a guaranteed job. What I will say, so if it sounds contradictory, excuse me, but what I will say is certainly the numbers show that the more highly educated you are, the more likely you are to get a job and the more likely you are to earn more. So if we look at the starting salary someone can expect if they didn't finish school, it's like 1,000 to 1,500 rand. If you just move from not finishing Matric to getting your Matric, that starting salary potential doubles. If you add 1 year of study beyond Matric, the kind of salary you're going to expect doubles again. So every single year from grade 11 to 12, from 12 to a certificate, a 1 year certificate past Matric, every one of those years that you finish one level higher in your education makes a huge impact on what you can expect to earn, and it makes a huge impact on the likelihood that you get a job. So the education certainly matters, but don't think that it guarantees your job. You've got to separately work towards finding that job.
Many Matric students are worried that their parents are pressuring them into studying something that they are not interested in. What would you suggest that they tell their parents?
Yeah, parents unfortunately often are confused between their own dreams or their own unfulfilled dreams and their children and what they wish for their children. Like I said at the start of this discussion, it's okay to take time to think about it. It's okay to take a gap year. You need to get value out of the gap year if you do it. I'm not saying take a gap year, sit at home and do nothing. But the more you think and talk about what really interests you, the better choices you're going to make in terms of a career and in terms of studies. And setting off in a study direction that you already know you don't like before you've even started, it's just a recipe for disaster. You're going to struggle to pass, you're not going to enjoy your studies, you're not going to enjoy the job. Maybe I'm talking to those parents. You need to chill out, you need to allow some time and put in some effort towards helping the child, do some career related tests, talk to people about what your real interests are. There's a lot of help like that available on the internet.
As you mentioned earlier, there's 3 steps that students can take if they failed or are unhappy with their results. How could you help a student to decide between a remark, a rewrite or a recheck?
I think you have a clear, I hope, as a person who wrote the exam, you've got a pretty clear idea of whether that mark more or less reflects what you expected or whether it is way off. If you expected to fail and you failed, the remark ain't going to fix that. But if you expected, a high mark and you failed, you need to ask yourself, do you think there's a real error, there's a real mistake? You have a friend and you usually get more or less the same kind of marks. The friend got an A and you got a D. I would look at things that would help you figure out, do you think there was a real mistake in the marking of your paper? If you think there was a real mistake, ask for a remark. If you think there's a real mistake, you ask for a remark. If you think you didn't write very well, you felt badly when you wrote, you were kind of expecting to do badly, then I don't know if I'll go for a remark. I'll sign myself up for 1 or 2 subjects to write in May and June, and improve those subjects and improve my results like that. It's really a question of, do you think there was a real error when you look at your marks or not? And that should help you decide.
Students are afraid of going to huge institutions for their studies due to COVID-19. What are their options?
Man, there's all kinds of options. Firstly, worldwide, I think we all agree that COVID is more dangerous the older you are. So if you haven't got comorbidities, if you haven't got other illnesses or problems already, if you're a healthy young person, COVID is not that dangerous to you. COVID is extremely dangerous to the 60 and the 70-year-old. So I wouldn't be too stressed about COVID. The vaccines are coming out. We all know to wear a mask, wash our hands, keep the social distancing, keep up those rules. I wouldn't be too worried about it. But of course, there is a lot of online programs you can study in South Africa. There's lots of distance learning colleges. I work at Matric College. All our offerings are distance learning. So it's for people who are working or people who are at home. We send the books, we help them over the phone, we help them over Skype, we help them over email. Home study, distance learning is a viable option. UNISA is a huge, distance learning university. So certainly studying from home is a real option.
Students are fearful about the updates in NSFAS or funding. Do you have any comments on that?
There's a bit of a hoo-ha. There's a bit of a, people are stressed out around NSFAS funding for specific qualifications. I read the circular they sent to universities, and it kind of looked like they're just ending funding for teaching and nursing students. They sent out a follow-up communication, I think yesterday or the day before, where they explained they're simply phasing out qualifications that they were saying 5 years ago they're going to phase out, and there are replacement qualifications that replaces those nursing and teaching qualifications. So for me, all I would do is I would check that I'm studying the replacement qualification, and that I'm not signing up on the old thing being phased out. That should be fine.
Many students want to work and study at the same time. Is it a good idea, and what are their options?
Yeah, I think the reality is, you need to get out there, and most of us must find a job and bring an income. So it's not always possible to have no income and study full time. You're lucky if you're in a situation where you can do that. I think most studies that happens is actually adults who are working and studying. It's distance learning, it's evening classes, it's classes on a Saturday. So that is the model. It's online classes. Yes, it's viable. It can work. But I also think one must be real about working and studying. You gotta think carefully about where is the studying going to fit in. You've got to make time every day, and stick to a study schedule. And that's the successful distance learning students are students who study every single day. They make that time. They've got a quiet space. And everybody around them know, listen, it's between 6 in the evening and 8 in the evening. That's the time my friend is studying. I'm not going to bother him. If you think about how to set up your situation to make it possible for you to study, then absolutely it's possible.
Students are wondering if they should plan to study further after acquiring a certificate or diploma, or if that would be sufficient.
I guess I'm of the generation that believes you study as far as you can. There's no downside to an additional year of study. There's no negative to the additional year of study. It will help you. It will help your career. So I think you go as far as you can. Don't start something if you think you've totally lost interest and you're going to fail it. But if you think, no, I've done a certificate, I enjoyed it, I can see how I can use it in my work. Let me do a diploma. Let me study up to a higher level in that direction. Then certainly, I believe you'll be happy the rest of your life that you have studied as far as you can. And of course, many people study throughout their lives. We've got distance learning students who are 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're studying towards a new interest they have. They're studying to get better at their jobs. So there's no too far. It's a question of, is it really your interest? Is it possible for you to do? If you can, then you go further. Yes.
Thank you for joining us today, Jan, and answering all the questions that students have been pondering about. If you have any further questions that you want to ask, you can comment down below and we'll get to them next time. Thank you.